Hello, everyone. Welcome to the webinar, and thank you so much for taking the time today to join us. So at Canto, we are always making updates to our software, with major updates being scheduled at least once a quarter. And since the beginning of the year, we've made several big changes that should have a positive impact on some of our most used integrations and features. But rather than just go through a list of changes, or just send you all of our prospects and clients email updates. I wanted to invite our lead engineer, Jonathan Lalo, to join me and cover some of the real world impacts that these changes are going to have on the way our clients use Canto. So I am Ariana Kyle. I'm marketing manager at Canto. And again, joining me is Jonathan Lalo, one of our sales engineers.
Hi, welcome.
So since many of our users work in graphic design, one of our most popular integrations has always been those that integrate with InDesign, whether it's through our Canto Adobe Connector or our Canto brand templates. So with the Canto Adobe Connector, graphic designers can natively search and filter for images from their Canto media library and insert them directly into InDesign layouts. So while using the connector absolutely streamlines work between the Canto library and InDesign, until a very recent update, users didn't have the ability to share full InDesign files directly through Canto and then open them directly from the Canto library as an InDesign file. So Jonathan, can you show us what's changed with those features?
Yeah, happy to share. So prior to this update, what creatives often did if they wanted to share an InDesign file for collaboration was to share it over Slack or email. Now, users don't have to attach assets or package all the InDesign files together in order to share it. The connector does it intuitively and brings the assets over. So all we have to do is navigate to our folder tree in Canto, into where the InDesign file is saved into the Canto. We would go to the Canto library, and I know that this InDesign file is saved into our Adobe Creative Cloud folder, and I'm going to go inside the Adobe Files album. Click into that, and I'm going to find the InDesign file that I'm looking at, where I get my tooltip preview of the metadata information. And when I click into it, I have our preview page. So all they have to do is navigate in the folder tree of your Canto library where the InDesign file is lives, click into it, and now we're going to have three options: to insert, to replace, and open. So you just have to click open, and it opens the full InDesign file with all the linked assets already connected. So I'm going to do that right now.
So the full InDesign file is now hosted and openable through Canto, so the user doesn't have to download the file and then share it separately. This is basically enabling a user to maintain Canto as that single source of truth for assets, while at the same time keeping all of the files layers and functionality. So yeah, with you demoing this, I'm starting to get a sense of how much time this would save for creatives when they're working on a project, particularly one I would imagine with multiple InDesign files and then source images hosted in Canto.
Exactly. I can open multiple InDesign files directly out of Canto and get into work editing a project. So let's say, for example, I don't like this image that we have and I want to switch it out. I can find a picture I like better that's hosted in my Canto library, so I know it's approved and used for this project. I can select the new image I want to, click replace, and bam, the image is replaced. So let's do that right now. I'm going to go into my collections where I already made some Canto image saved into my own personal collections. I like this weekly meeting image right here better. Mm-hmm. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the frame that I want to replace image. And in my preview page, I have the insert and replace option. So for this example, I'm just going to hit replace. Okay. So I hit the replace button and bam, the image is replaced. Maybe I want to go into the assets tab over here and to my right, and I want to update the resolution. So this looks good. The resolution for this Canto image right here is up to the highest resolution. So right now I want to save this. So what I can do is go to my desktop and save this InDesign file to my desktop. Okay, looks good. So I hit save. So I'm saving this new version of the InDesign file with the changes I've made. I'll just save it to my desktop. If you're replacing an existing file into your Canto library, make sure it's the same type and the same file name. Okay. Then I'm going to click over to my Uploads tab, where I have two options: upload as a new version or upload as a new file. I'm going to select new version in this case. So I'm going to select the file that I'm working on. I can pick the file I want and upload it as a new version.
Gotcha. So then you select it and it just uploads the new version of the full InDesign file right into the same place in the Canto library?
Correct. So this is the InDesign file that I saved into my desktop. And I'm going to update this as a new version. So all I have to do is I browse for the file, selected it, and when I'm ready, I have to hit upload.
Uploaded successfully. All right. So this is a functionality we've had as an integration for Photoshop for a while, but now we have it for InDesign as well.
Yes, as you can imagine, users love this functionality, and we really wanted to be able to use it with other InDesign files as well.
I can imagine. I mean, so many social media marketers, content marketers use InDesign, and this functionality is going to be really useful for exactly those type of situations they run into a lot, being asked to make small edits to existing files or swap out pictures within a bigger piece of content. So now through the Canto Adobe Connector, we have both the Photoshop and InDesign programs having the same functionality in terms of connectivity, and being able to open those full files and make modifications and then upload the new version. So yeah, definitely. I can see this being a real time saver for content marketers and graphic designers. So what else did you want to show us today in terms of new features and updates?
Right, so I'm going to demonstrate the updates Canto has made to workflows. So workflows represent the project management aspects of Canto. So historically, users have been able to use workflows in Canto to manage steps by task, assign participants to certain steps for approvals or reviews, gather feedbacks, and so forth.
Gotcha. So let's just review kind of a basic workflow feature as it existed in Canto previously.
So well, prior to this update, users couldn't attach a file or assets to a step of their workflow. They could reference a specific asset, but really couldn't attach it. So prior to this, when users had a workflow task, they could create the task name, write a description, and put a little information about ask for feedback and kind of describe where the assets lived. So for example, people would do review, nonprofits, community, album.
Gotcha. So I can see how that would be kind of inconvenient having to direct the person you assign the task to towards a particular file, but the file itself that you're referencing isn't actually attached within the step.
Exactly. Right. So now users can actually attach the assets. So you can go into the task step, click into the task details, and add a file. Prior to this update, you would have to make a comment and put the file name as a description to the person assigned to this task.
Gotcha.
So let me show you how this is done. So we're going to go to our workflow section and we're going to create a new workflow. So we're going to do the little details for the workflow. So we're going to put workflow name, our start date, and a description. So this is where we get our marketing collateral feedback. We're going to add a task. And this is where we're going to put our task name. So the first step is gather feedback. We add the task name and the description. And now with the new update, we have the option to select an album and to select a file. So for this example, I'm going to go into select album. And I want to gather feedback for our nonprofit community album. I also have the option to do a search for the album name. So ready to go for there. This functionality works from the main album view as well. What we would recommend in this case is if you're looking through your albums and you want to spot a few photos that you want to attach to your workflow, you can add them to My Selections to make them easier to find when you're creating your workflow.
Gotcha. So that's great for if you're attaching multiple files, for example, from several different albums or only a few files from a really large album, because the My Selections shows up as a tab within the workflow task. So you can just add individual files at this stage if, say, there was an extra one you forgot to include in your previous selection.
Correct. So for this one, I'm going to do the file name and going to add a file. So we're going to click the Add a File button. And we have the options to select from our main library or My Selections. So I'm over here in my main Canto library into our nonprofits community album. And for My Selections, I'm going to select a couple assets for us to remember. So if I hover over to the top left corner, we're going to have the option to select the assets that we want to work with. So I'm going to select the first 5. And at the top over here, we have our remember selection icon. So I'm going to click that. So we have this in our My Selections option.
So this is really useful if when you're attaching files to an assigned task, if you really only want somebody to look at, half a dozen files within an album that, contains maybe 100 files. You don't want to direct them just to the whole album, but neither do you want to be searching for each individual photo. It's easier to connect them through My Selections by just having them in a group right here.
Correct. So I can go to my file name and add a file. So instead of searching through the library of the file or typing the file name, with My Selections, I can select the assets that I want, and I can select one asset or all the assets that I want.
Gotcha. So, I can see this being, again, a huge time saver and something that's going to ensure clarity and consistency in project management through the workflows, with users being able to include the subject of their workflow right within the task, and all the other users who are part of that workflow, whether they're part of an approval step or a revision step, will be sure that they're all working off the same assets. I can also see this being really useful for creative teams. For example, if they're using a workflow to manage the editing of like a particular set of photos, they could attach the album of photos that need editing with the comment like, color correct all photos in this album to match the color composition of additional attached photo X, and then also attach the photo that they're using as a color reference. So all in all, I can just see this as being, really streamlining in terms of improving the functionality of workflows as a project management tool.
Yes. So now that we assign this task, the cool thing about these attached files, they show a visible breadcrumb trail, and we can see what files are attached, who's responsible for these tasks that they're attached to. And then when the file within the workflow has been modified, approved, and saved as a new version, it's easy to share it to a portal or publish it to your social channels. The next feature I want to focus on today, it covers improvements on our related file system.
Okay. So let's talk about how related files work in general within Canto.
Okay. The related asset feature helps you tie together multiple assets, so it's easy to jump between them. It's really useful for associating similar files. For example, product files where we're relating multiple photos of the same products from different angles or multiple variants of the same products. So historically in Canto, you could select multiple files and then click the Relate Files icon and create a virtual link between them. So I'm going to demonstrate that. I can hover over the asset and select multiple. So I selected the 10 assets. And if I hover over to the Relate Files icon, I can create the relationship and it's successful. And when I preview the assets, at the bottom, we're going to get this overlay of all the related files.
Gotcha. So you can see them all in the tray below the main image.
Correct.
So what kind of changes did the new updates make to the related files feature?
Well, Canto always had the ability to relate files to each other, regardless of where it is in the folder structure when they were actually hosted. But now we have the functionality to relate multiple files to a key file in a one-to-many relationship.
So now you can designate a main file and then other variant files get tied back to it?
Correct.
Gotcha. Okay, so there's a lot of applications for this, but one that jumps immediately into my mind is its utility for retailers and e-commerce operations. So I would guess, based on this example, let's say your company is a skincare retailer and you have an e-commerce platform connected like Shopify. You've got your Canto library, and using the Zapier integration, you've got your e-commerce platform connected to your Canto library. The way related files worked in the past, what was it about that old system that would make this whole operation way more complicated than it needed to be?
In the past, when you relate a file, the file relates to all the other files in that relation. So there was no parent-child structure to it.
Which would be a problem if, say, what you wanted to do is designate a key photo or asset and then relate all the different variations, whether by color or size in a hierarchical way, where you have the key product photo and then all the related versions, like different variants or even different crops of the same key photo.
Yes. So now related files work much more intuitively in the way our clients would actually organize their assets. So I'm going to demonstrate that for you. In this example, I'm demonstrating this photo as a key photo in a particular product. And I want all the other photos to be a variant of that product related in a one-to-many relationship to the key photo. I can also relate other types of assets into this key photo, such as pricing sheets or presentations. So let's demonstrate that. So for this example, I'm going to select these 4 photos and have our custom skincare image right here as my key photo. So I'm going to select the 4 that I want. And I'm going to hit the relate files icon. I'm going to enter the group name of skin care key photo. And from here, I'm going to select which one of these as my primary photo. And at the bottom, I'm going to select this as my primary photo. And when I'm done, I hit save. Successful.
So this is really useful when you want to update a photo of a key product, and then at the same time, make sure you're updating all the photos of all the variants. So let's see what that actually looks like, when you would go to search for that key product photo and see all its relations.
So yeah, we have our key product photo over here, and we have all the related files. So with this new update, we have the one-to-many relationship of the key photo, this custom skincare, and the other variants of that photo. So we have the pink one, the orange one, and the green image available.
Gotcha. Excellent. Yeah, that's just going to make it much simpler to make sure you're catching all the additional variant versions of a photo when you search for it in order to make an update. So what I'm seeing here is overall, this feature is just going to be really useful for retailers who need to update the digital assets for products and then make sure all the versions of those products are getting that same update. And in fact, I'd like to kind of take the utility of this feature one step further and point out that when you have your e-commerce platform integrated into your Canto library, it's going to make pushing out those updates to your photos and variable assets back to your e-commerce platform a really simple next step.
Exactly. That's what this update makes much easier. Once you have your e-commerce platform integrated, you can set up triggers so that whenever a new file is updated to a particular Canto album, it pushes the updates through the e-commerce store page. We have our Canto Shopify integration with Zapier. And we have triggers for setting up a new file in a Canto album and actions as update product variants.
Gotcha. So the related files update allowing one-to-many hierarchical relationships really is just one small feature, but it's part of many larger processes. And so streamlining and making this feature more efficient, it's really going to cut down on a lot of work. We're creating this relationship knowing it's going to make the regular process of updating key product photos and then making sure that all the product variant photos are updated, or creating new product variants and then subsequently pushing it to your e-com platform that much easier.
Precisely.
This has been great, Jonathan. Just to recap, so today we've reviewed updates that will help Canto users in streamlining the graphic design projects, task management, as well as related files and product updates. So thank you so much for helping me and all of our viewers understand how these updates that we're making to the software are actually going to impact the way they use Canto and the processes they go through every day. Sometimes when you see a big list of software updates, it isn't immediately apparent how the changes are actually going to impact your use case, your projects, and the tasks your team handles on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, thank you for joining me. I'm always excited to review these new features. And our hope is always that with these changes, that will make our customers' lives a little easier.
100%, 100%. So with that, I'll say goodbye to you all. If you have any questions about how these features that we've reviewed today work, or any other questions about Canto or digital asset management, please feel free to reach out to us at www.canto.com. Have a great day.